She was sitting here.
Yeah. How'd you find out?
I tried to streamline it just so I could tease out the rest of the information moving forward and contextualize it. All right, detective. Good to see you again after lunch. All right, so last part about the clown I want to discuss is the costume. And let's push through this. May 26, 1990, Joey Ahern said the clown was wearing a jumpsuit. Do you recall that?
I don't have.
You don't have it?
Sorry, they're out of the loop.
But do you recall that?
Let me tap it in more real quick. Sorry, no.
Sure.
Just looking. Okay, I'm sorry, go ahead.
All right, May 26, 1990, Joey Ahern said the clown was wearing a jumpsuit. Do you recall that?
Yeah, could you please,
You don't recall that without the
I
transcript?
recall that at some point you said that, yes.
All right, so at some point he said it was a jumpsuit. All right, he said it was all gray in color.
I believe you said blue gray.
May 26, defense 1, page 12, lines 4 through 6.
Page 12?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, and moving on to June 28, 1991. Defense Exhibit 2, and I'm going to push through about 8 quotes here to really streamline this from that section, rather than going one at a time. So if you look at page 6.
Yes?
June 28, 1991, Mr. Ahern said the clown wore a jumpsuit, 19 through 21.
Yes.
And then starting on page 7, I'm going to read this all to you, okay? Starting on 7, lines 2 and 3.
Okay.
All right, with a grayish blue kind of tint. It was all one faded color. It was not a two-tone jumpsuit. It did not have different colors throughout it. It was all uniform gray. It looked like a mechanic uniform. Flipping to page 8, it looked like someone just threw on overalls over what they had on. Cloth, not shiny or anything. With white dressy gloves. Not gloves you find someone working in the garden with. That's all there, right?
I lost you on some of it, but if you're reading from there, then I'm assuming it's there.
Okay. And the state will stipulate that's what is in the deposition?
They stipulated the statements that are provided down.
Perfect. All right. Quickly, state's response. They indicated that Mr. Ahern was wearing a colorful clown costume. Nowhere in any of that does he describe the clown costume as colorful, correct?
I'm sorry, without reading it, I can't say for sure.
All right.
But it's something
The state's asking countless questions about the description of the clown, the color of the wig, the color of the makeup, whether you reviewed all of these, and you had an answer to every question. I'm asking you questions about the same things and you recall a single thing about them.
You're asking me to agree with what you're reading, and if you're reading from the statement, then I'll agree that that's what it says in there.
Okay, I'm simply asking.
You're kind of skipping all around, and I'm sorry, I can't follow that quickly.
I'm simply asking you if anywhere, in anything we just read, there is a comment about a colorful clown costume.
I don't believe he said that. I
Okay.
don't have that listed in my notes that he said that.
Okay. And as I said, the state did say that in their response. Moving on to Jean Pratt, we did the same thing. All right. May 26, 1990, defense 3. She also described the costume, and all she could remember was that it had bright colors, page 7. You recall that?
Recall she said it had bright colors, yes.
Yeah. And June 27, 1991, she confirmed bright colors?
I don't know exactly what day when she provided the information. I have that she provided that she did state that it was bright colors.
All right. And that's, just for the record, defense exhibit 3. She also remembered seeing some blues.
White with patches or bright blue
All right.
or red.
And Investigator Valentine, Detective Sessa, and ASA Moyle then showed her a costume they purchased.
I believe they did, yes.
And as you said earlier, this is the costume you used for forensic comparisons.
We didn't use the costumes for forensic, or for the comparisons, yes.
Yeah. All right. And I do want to show you this line. Page 26, line 15.
Which statement?
The one you have in front of you, June 27, 1991.
Page
That's
29?
exhibit 4, page 26.
Okay.
When Investigator Valentine showed Jean Pratt the costume, she immediately said, that is nothing close to it.
Yes.
And I'm just going to read you several lines from that, rather than going one at a time to move this along. ASA Moyle asked her what was different. Jean Pratt said the colors are wrong. She continued, it was more white and there were patches of colors like a bright blue or a bright red. Assistant State Attorney Moyle then said, what other differences are there besides the color and the style? Jean Pratt said there were no puffy balls. ASA Moyle then said, let's assume the balls were taken off. Are you saying that there absolutely positively is not the suit that you saw on the clown that day? Jean Pratt responded, positive for the no. And that's all there, correct?
Yes.
All right. And the woman from the Spotlight costume store said a woman bought that specific costume.
I don't know, if, sitting here right now, I don't know which costume they showed her, but I know there's a costume of evidence that they purchased from the Spotlight that was supposed to be similar to the one that was, or like the one that was purchased by Sheila Keen.
And there's one costume in evidence.
Yes.
And she said positive for the no.
Yes.
Wendell Perez. May 26, 1990, defense 5. We'll go to pages 4 and 5. Same thing, I'm going to read both quotes. I'm not going to do it. I'm going to do this for all of them, okay? Okay. Wendell Pratt said the person was wearing a white and red clown outfit. That's lines 5 and 6, page 4. On page 5, lines 5 through 10, it was all white and red with hearts or diamonds.
Yes.
All right, now moving on to defense 6, June 27th, 1991. He gave a similar description. I couldn't tell if it was a diamond shaped or hearts. The red and white outfit from head to toe, from pants to shirt, it was red and white. Page 14.
Yes.
And then page 27, 11 through 17, I'm going to read you these. He said, it looked like maybe it had hearts or diamonds all over it. You know, it was red like hearts, diamonds all over it, and real fluffy, and that it was just white and red. See that there?
Yes.
And then 32, we're going to, with Wendell finish the these 2 pages. So 32, 33. Investigator Valentine, starting in line 1, Detective Sessa and ASA Moyle showed him the costume they purchased.
Yes.
Again, the costume that the 2 women described from Spotlight.
Yes. It was this one was a small clown costume, not a large like it was purchased.
but the same costume but small.
Yes.
Investigator Valentine said, I'm now showing you the witness's small clown outfit. And Wendell Pratt said, no, that was not it.
Yes.
And skipping forward, I'm going to skip a bunch of quotes in between to move this along. Page 33, lines 8 through 10. Somewhere there.
I mean,
And I'm just going to, again, read a bunch of quotes. Assistant Attorney Boyle stepped in and said, you're saying positively without any hesitation that this is not the same style, design, and color as the one you saw that day. Wendell Pratt responded positive, at which point ASA Boyle finished questioning him about the costume they bought, and then Detective Sessa started questioning Wendell Pratt. Detective Sessa said, I know this was a very traumatizing situation when you open the door and all of a sudden you hear a shot in the person's spleen and the whole 9 yards. Is there a possibility? I mean, this clown's outfit here. There's no doubt in your mind that. And Wendell Pratt responded for the third time, that ain't it.
yes.
All right. And finally, Mindy Perez, and we are done with this clown costume. May 26, 1990, Defense Exhibit 7. And just page 9, one question there. Lines 18 through 21. Ms. Perez told Detective Kelly, I know it was multiple colors. It was multiple colors. I don't know. Some blues with dots on it.
Yes.
And then June 27, 1991, Defense 8. Page 7 through 8. I'll just go through this. Oh, where she was sitting, she couldn't see the clown costume. All she could really see was the wig and maybe the arm. 7:17 through 8:9 around there.
Yes.
We can skip through the rest of 7 through 9. I'll move to page 12. Investigator Valentine then showed her the clown outfit the police bought, starting in line 1. Valentine said, let me just show you a clown outfit here. Does that look familiar to you? And Paris said, no. She said, the only color I remember seeing on it was like a blue. ASA Moyle then pointed out, this particular outfit does not have any blue on it at all. Are you sure that you saw blue on the clown outfit that day? Perez answered, there was some blue on the clown outfit. Moyle said, bright blue, dark blue, medium blue, navy color. Ms. Perez said, it was like a navy color.
Right.
All right, so the state has said that Ms. Perez couldn't recall specifics about the design of the clown costume, but that it was multiple colors. Now here, from what we just said, she did remember some specifics, that it had some blue.
Yes.
All right. Now, we just discussed the detective spotter costume, right?
Yes.
And you're not going to need those reports for a while, so let's take a break from those. I know we've been through those ad nauseum at this point. They bought the costume that the two women from Spotlight told her the woman bought a few days before, right?
Yes.
And as you just heard, Gene Pratt said the Spotlight costume was nothing close to the costume the clown was wearing.
Yes.
Wendell Pratt said no, that was not it.
Yes.
Mindy Perez didn't recognize it,
Right.
but it didn't match her description of having blue in it.
Right.
And it looked nothing like the gray outfit that Joey Ahearns described.
Right.
All right, on to the White LeBaron. I want to talk about the eyewitness description of this white car.
Well, I need
You might for this. and then we are done with the eyewitnesses. On May 30th, you testified on direct, the police recovered the white LeBaron from the Winn-Dixie parking lot.
Yes,
And this is the car you claim was the getaway car?
yes,
The LeBaron at Winn-Dixie was a 1990 two-door LeBaron convertible
yes,
with a license plate?
yes.
All right, and I'm going to ask you to pull out Joey Ahern's May 26th, defense 1. Page 4, and again, I'm going to read through several lines at once. All right. It was a white LeBaron, solid white, line 21, starting at page 4, 10 through 12, and then 22 through 23. He said it had no license plate, and then he said it was a hardtop. He said nothing about the year of the car in that interview, right?
I don't know if he mentions it later in the interview or not.
Okay, but that's an evidence.
Yes,
All right, the judge can rely on that being evidence. All right, and if you, again, I'm not sure if you recall, so in the June 1991 interview that you provided defense, Mr. Ahern said the car was white with a hardtop.
I'm not sure if he specifically stated that in the interview. He said the whole time that it was white, that was consistent.
All right. He said that it was a square model type LeBaron, possibly a model year 1984.
I don't know.
All right, now moving on to Defense Exhibit 2. That's Joey Ahern, June 28, 1991, page 12, and I'm going to read through all of those quotes and then ask you about it. All right, starting at page 12, line 3. It didn't look like a convertible to me, just looked like a hardtop. Older car. I was picturing an 86. It was a coupe. It was a coupe. I didn't know what made me think it's not a convertible, but I seen the shininess on the top of the car looking down the stairs. I mean, it just didn't look like a convertible. He said the LeBaron was more boxy than they are now. He mentioned that he knows the different types of LeBarons, and that he's pretty good at cars because he used to work with his dad in the car business. And flip it to page 19, and that's all correct, right? That's all there?
I didn't see that last portion, but it's in the statement and
Okay.
page 19 there.
Yes. Starting at line 9, or pardon me, yeah, we'll start. It's 6 through 10. It wasn't an 87 or above, and that he thought the LeBaron was an 86.
Yes,
And then I apologize, the comment about him being good with cars because of his dad is on page 20. All right, moving to Gene Pratt. And that's defense 3, page 6, lines 15 through 17. Gene Pratt said it had a white top, like a coupe. It was not a vinyl top, correct?
it was like a vinyl top. Oh, it was not like a vinyl top. Yes, I'm sorry. It was
All
nice
right.
and clean. Yes.
Defense 4, June 27, 1991. And you know she confirmed without looking at it that there was no license plate?
Yes, I know that. I believe they all stated there was no tag.
All right, and the car in the Winn-Dixie parking lot had a license plate?
Yes.
All right, so let's go to page 21.
On which statement?
And that Gene Pratt's interview from June of 1991.
Okay.
I'm going to read,
Page 21, you said?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Gene Pratt said, and I quote, "It was a coupe." Detective Sessa asked her, "Could you tell if it was a convertible or a hardtop?" Pratt replied, it was not a convertible. Detective Sessa said, "Are you positive?" Jean Pratt replied, "Positive. My sister has a car just like it, but it's blue and hers isn't a convertible. It looks just like that."
Yes, it's-
All right, now flip to page 35 of the same interview.
okay.
And during the interview, and we'll start on 21, Investigator Valentine also showed her a picture of the LeBaron from the Winn-Dixie parking lot.
He's showing a picture of a car, I'm assuming that's the car, yes.
And he asked her if it was the car, and Jean Pratt immediately responded, "This doesn't look like it."
Yes, she says, no, I see the opposite side, this doesn't look like it.
All right, and then over to the next page, ASA Moyle chimed in. "What's different about it?" Pratt responded, "The stripe, the pinstripe, and the black mark. I do not remember seeing a black mark, just the red. That's all I remember." She continued, "I was shown this before. This is not the car." ASA Moyle responded, "Are you sure that's not the car?" Jean Pratt said, "Positive, sir. I was shown this before, and this is not the car." And she reiterated the car is a red stripe in between the black folding and the little pinstripe. I do believe this picture was shown to be at Subway." That's all there?
Yes.
And Wendell Pratt and Mindy Perez didn't say much. I was asking a few questions about them with the convertible. Wendell Pratt, May 26th, did identify the car as a white LeBaron.
Yes.
Also, like you said, no license plate.
Yes.
And June 27th, 1991, defense 6, or defense, I guess that would be defense 6. Page 18, he said, "I couldn't tell if it was a convertible or a hardtop."
Page 18,
Yes.
which line is it?
18, 19 through 20.
Yes.
All right, and Mindy Perez last, and you're, you testified to this on direct, you probably don't need the transcript for this one. She identified the car as a white LeBaron with no license plate.
Yes.
And also in that interview on page 5, line 17 through 19,
Which version?
526.
Okay. I'm sorry, what page you?
Page 5.
Okay.
She couldn't remember if it was a 2-door or a 4-door.
She couldn't remember.
I'm sorry, what?
She could not remember.
All right. So, 4 people saw the car on the day of the shooting.
Yes, I'm sorry.
2 of the 4 people identified the car as a coupe.
Yes.
2 of the 4 people didn't know.
They all described it as a newer model, white LeBaron.
Now, I mean, we just went through Joe Ahern's saying that it wasn't a newer model, it wasn't an 87 or above, it was an 86. That's not a newer model of Barron.
In other statements, he provided and advised it was a newer model.
What is it?
I'd have to go through them. I know either in the police reports or in the statements, he indicates that it was a newer model of Barron, white, very clean. But all of it will be stated.
In order to expedite and not have to review these entire transcripts, which don't say that, I'm going to allow they're both in evidence and we can rely on that.
Yes. By the way, all the documents that are in evidence right now are documents that were submitted to the court prior to the hearing today, is that right?
Yes, Judge.
Mr. Rosenfeld? Is there anything new that's come to evidence that the court hasn't seen before?
Yes.
There is?
Yeah, there's some scientific stuff, some evidence receipts.
Story in evidence right
It's
now?
not in evidence yet.
Okay. But right now, what's been submitted?
Yes, that was submitted, so I'm not going to question her any further on that, other than the statements that she read today goes to the two statements from Joey Ahern's, and both of them, he described it as an 86 or an 87, and as a coupe, not a convertible.
In the lines that you showed me, yes, that's what it says.
And in those statements, nobody identified the car as a convertible.
I don't recall.
All right. And the convertible, the Winn-Dixie convertible was a convertible. The Winn-Dixie LeBaron, excuse me, was a convertible.
Yes.
All right, I want to move on to the Publix employees. And you could, mind if I grab those and give them to the clerk? I just got a stack.
Can we approach?
Thank you very much, Your Honor. Your Honor, with no objection from the state, I'm moving the sworn statement of Regina Alvaro from June 21st, 1991 to evidence as defense 9.
Objection. Charge is submitted.
I may approach.
Yes.
All right. I promise you I do not have nearly as many questions about the Publix employees as the Iowa witnesses. So approximately 10 hours after the shooting, the detectives interviewed 2 employees from the Publix in West Palm Beach,
Yes.
Regina Alvaro
Yes.
and Mary DiFrancesco.
Yes.
And sadly, she passed away in the past 2 months, Miss DiFrancesco.
Yes.
And you discussed flower arrangements in your direct examination. I think you said Memorial Day flower arrangements?
Yes. That was just correct.
Yes. And in Detective Williams' police report, on conducting his investigation, he learned that this specific flower arrangement was not unique to that Publix. It was sold throughout South Florida. It was a Memorial Day special.
I don't recall that.
All right, we'll get back to that. So the following day, and this is May 27th, the detectives returned to Publix to show both Miss Alvaro. I apologize, it's actually Miss Alvaro, not Miss Alvaro. It was misspelled in almost everything. And Miss DiFrancesco a photo lineup.
Yes.
And the lineup contained a picture of Sheila Keen Warren and 5 other women.
Yes.
Miss Alvaro did not identify Miss Keen Warren.
No, she did not.
Miss DiFrancesco did not identify Miss Keen Warren.
No, she did not.
And I'm not going to read to you the 4 quotes from the state's response, but my questions are going to focus on a couple terms used. Identical features, exact match of the defendant's physical appearance, and the term the female, all of which are in the state's response on page 7 and 17. So for now, we'll focus on exact match and identical features. In Miss Alvaro's recorded statement, she told Assistant State Attorney Boyle that the person who bought the flowers was close to 6 feet. Right.
I don't recall.
So turn to page 16.
Okay.
All right. Lines 1 through 2,
Yes.
she said, Miss Albro said that the flowers were close to, pardon me, the person who bought the flowers were close to 6 feet.
Yes.
And then the following dialogue followed, and I'll read through this. ASA Moyle, how tall are you, Tim? Referring to Investigator Valentine. Investigator Valentine said 6'1". ASA Moyle asked him to stand up. Would you stand up, please? Investigator Valentine said yes and stood up. Miss Albro asked him to turn around, all the way around, and then said, probably at least that tall.
Yes.
So in her sworn statement, she said that the person who bought the flowers was at least as tall as Mr. Valentine.
Yes.
At least 6 feet and 1 inch tall then.
Yes. She also indicates that at least that tall because he had a cap on too. So I don't know if that would take into account for being a 6 foot. But that's exactly what it says here.
Was it one of those like 6-inch closed money caps? I mean, or a cap, a hat. It was a painter's cap, right?
That's what's described, yes.
Painter's caps are pretty tight fitting.
I don't know what type, I don't know what cap she had on, so.
All right, and just one other statement. The state made, tall, thin, white female with long brown hair. And one of the quotes was discussed in your direct examination, but on 3 occasions, Miss Albro stated that the person she saw was a boy or man, right?
I don't know how many occasions, but she did state that.
I'm going to read them all for you rather than having you go through one at a time. On page 8, lines 3 through 5.
These are all in evidence?
Yes, Judge.
Yes? Mr. Roosevelt, these in evidence? Correct?
Yes, I can just read a portion of the statements.
Why are you asking her to discuss it? Already evidence. When this will go on throughout the rest of the day, you want to do that, Mr. Roosevelt? If it's already evidence, why are you asking her?
I think it goes directly to her credibility. She made limited statements in direct examination indicating that Miss Albro identified this person as a boy when she first saw him. When in fact, based on these other statements I'm going to read, she clearly thought the person who bought the flowers was a boy or a man until she was shown photos by the police. The police ultimately only showed her photos of women.
Speak to me, that argument to me later on. Hey, listen, her credibility is diminished by look at what she said before. Look at what she said in these statements.
Yeah, I could read them later or now, just so I get it out of the way rather than reciting all this, the quotes then. And that was my intent.
Okay.
I think this is the last transcript we're going to be working with today. All right. First, Ms. Albro said, I thought originally when I told them it was a man or boy, I thought it was a boy from the back view. They showed me pictures of women. Page 8, lines 3 through 5. Next, she said, 12, 13 through 21. I mean I am going to say he. I thought it was a male, first off. He was kneeling down. He had his hand on the door of the cooler and had it open. He was inside, like kneeling. Page 12, 13 through 21. I saw like a painter's hat, a white hat with some kind of lettering on it, longer hair, sort of tied back like a lot of guys are wearing it, sort of like down the back. And her last quote, page 18, lines 23 through 25, I thought, like I said, he was a man or boy. I thought mainly a boy. They had the hair, I meant he was long enough to, and then it gets cut off. That's all there, right?
I'm sorry. If it's in the statement, yes, I lost track.
All right, I'm looking with that, and I'm done with that. The mayor pro tem.
Yes.
assume the state's depiction of what Ms. Alvarez said is correct. This tall, thin, white female with long brown hair. You heard the male comment, so let's assume tall, thin, white female with long brown hair. That's not very descriptive, is it?
Are you saying that's the description that she provided for a complete description, or?
Sure.
Sorry, can you say that again?
So the description of the state, the way the state categorized Ms. Alvarez's description, tall, thin, white female with long brown hair. I'm saying the way the state categorized it, not what Ms. Alvarez said. That's not a very, that's a pretty general description of a person, right?
It's a description of a person, yes.
Yeah, I mean, Ms. Morris, sitting right there, is a tall, thin, white female with long brown hair.
Yes. I don't know if she's tall, I'm sorry.
Was that up? She's pretty tall.
Yes.
All right. Ms. Grimes, who you met before, who was not here, is a tall, thin, white female with long brown hair?
Yes.
I'm going, Your Honor. I'm going to read you a quote, this is not in evidence, from Supplement 5, Detective Mark Evans. And you did read all the supplements you said in this case?
Good point, yes.
Okay. I then spoke to the produce manager, John Sumter. Mr. Sumter identified the particular arrangement as being manufactured by a company in Miami called Florimar. He stated this particular arrangement was the Florimar Memorial Day arrangements containing the flowers and the plastic silverware, and that they were advertised special for all public stores. Mr. Sumter then attempted to contact someone on the telephone to find out the business address for Florimar. However, he was unable. Mr. Sumter was left my business card to contact me with the address for Florimar in Miami. So, as I asked you earlier, this particular flower arrangement that was found at Marlene Warren's house was being advertised and sold to Publixes throughout South Florida.
Or is there a report?
All right, and you relied on this report and all reports in establishing probable cause in this case in your investigation.
Yes.
All right, and at no time did you or anyone attempt to contact this company.
I do not know.
All right, moving past the Publix employees. Let's talk about Spotlight Capizio. So May 26, 1990, the day of the shooting, is when Detective Williams received a call from the owner of Spotlight.
I don't remember the date. It was around that time, yes.
All right, and as you stated before, it's a costume shop in West Palm Beach.
Yes.
Pretty big, well-known costume shop back then.
I don't know.
The caller, the owner, stated that 2 days before, 2 of her employees sold a woman a clown costume.
Yes.
And as you said, that was Dina Rosales and Deborah Small.
Yes.
They were interviewed by Detective Williams.
I'm not sure who interviewed them, but they were interviewed during the initial investigation, yes.
All right, and that's in Williams' supplement report 16.
I'm not sure what document it is.
I was going to give you that and have you hold on to that for a while. And we'll debate that.
The road's about how much longer have we crossed?
I would say 45 minutes.
Which number? Sub 16? Which number? Sub 16.
And clerk, are we
That is,
defense 10?
counsel, that is, golf.
Any objections?
No.
I was that objection, judge move the defense, exhibit 10, Detective Williams, supplement 16 into evidence.
No objection.
All right, then,
May I approach the witness?
yes, sir.
Let's flip to pages 14 through 16. All right, you see there that Detective Williams did interview the two employees,
Yes.
and Ms. Rosales, Ms. Small said they sold a woman a clown costume, orange wig, white makeup.
Yes.
Ms. Small described the costume they sold as being yellow-orange on one side and a candy pink color on the other side.
Ms. Rosales?
Ms. Small.
Oh, I'm sorry, I thought you just said Ms. Rosales.
Oh, it's the mask.
Ms. Rosales,
Ms. Small.
I'm sorry, Ms. Small, and she described it yellow, orange on one side and candy pink color on the other.
And we talked about this briefly earlier, so I'm not going to rehash too much, but the detectives purchased a similar wig and a similar costume based on these descriptions.
Yes.
And these costumes, the costume and wig were actually not bought at Spotlight.
That they purchased?
Yeah.
It's my understanding it was. I'm not sure. I thought they purchased it at Spotlight.
Based on what?
And that was my assumption, that it's where they got a wig and a costume. They had a, within evidence, there was a booklet with costumes that was from Spotlight, I believe. Every indication was that it was purchased there, but if you show me somewhere else, and
Well, there's no receipt and evidence showing the detectives bought a costume and wig from the store.
no, I haven't seen one, no.
Ms. Small, in any of her statements or deposition, never said that the detectives bought a costume and wig from Spotlight.
I don't think she was asked that.
Ms. Rosales never said that they bought a costume and wig from Spotlight. In any of her statements, any police reports, any depositions.
I don't believe that they asked her that either.
And the owner of the store didn't say they bought a costume and wig from the store.
I don't know if she was in the interview.
One moment, Your Honor. All right, so I'm going to read to you a quick excerpt from Deborah Small's sworn statement on June 26, 1991. One moment, Your Honor, let me show this to the state. With that objection, we're going to lose an evidence as defense exhibit 11.
all right,
No objection, Judge.
admitted.
And there's one line, page 5, we showed them, lines 1, 2 through 3. We showed them what we had. This is Ms. Small. But we didn't have the exact same suit. Do you recall reading that?
Yes.
First-
That's why they, I believe that's why they first got the small. Small.
Sorry, counsel, to line 5.
Yes. But nowhere does she say that they purchased a suit from Spotlight.
I did. I don't recall her saying that they purchased a suit or that she was asked that.
May I approach, Judge?
Yes, sir.
sitting here today, based on your case file, all of the recorded interviews, supplemental reports, lack of receipt, there is no evidence that these detectives purchased the clown suit they used from Spotlight. All right?
I believe I had a conversation with Detective Williams. At some point, I was told, I believe it was by Detective Williams, that they purchased the costume from them. The wig and the costume, they had to purchase them in small because they didn't have a large.
And that's nowhere in any of your reports.
In my reports,
Yes.
I don't think I'm not the one who collected it. No. It might be listed on the profit receipt.
And again, no one ever recovered the actual clown's costume or wig. So the detectives used the costume and wig they purchased to investigate their case.
Yes, for the comparisons.
For the fiber comparisons,
They used the clown wig that they purchased for the comparison.
and the wig they bought from wherever they bought it from is the wig they showed the 4 eyewitnesses
Yes,
during the interviews in June 27th and 28th of 1991.
yes,
And this is the wig that Gene Pratt said was not the right wig.
yes,
The wig that Wendell Pratt said was not the right wig.
yes, I believe,
The wig that Joey Ahern said was the wrong color.
yes.
And not a single eyewitness, described the costume as being yellow-orange on one side and a candy pink color on the other side.
No,
On May 27th, Detective Williams showed Miss Rosales the photo lineup containing a picture of Miss Keen Warren and 5 other women.
yes, May 27th, 1990.
And the picture of Miss Keen Warren was actually taken that day.
I don't recall what day, but it was around that time. It was the front picture.
Wasn't an old picture,
No,
right?
I believe that's the picture they used in the lineup.
All right. And Miss Rosales identified Miss Keen Warren as the person who looked most like the subject that bought the clown costume.
Yes,
On May 28th, Detective Williams showed Miss Small her lineup,
yes,
and Miss Small initially selected Miss Keen Warren's photograph and stated the woman looked somewhat like the customer who purchased the clown costume.
yes,
And according to Detective Williams' report, sub 16, after making her initial identification, Small then continued to look at the photographic lineup and then began to waiver her identification of Miss Keen Warren's photograph and stated that another photograph also resembled the woman.
yes. So it's in photograph 6.
Yeah,
That's
so-
the nose of the woman.
So conducting a photo lineup, this is your experience and policies and procedures, it's protocol to initial the photograph the witness identified.
Yes,
And she initialed the back of both photographs.
she did.
She initialed the back of 2 of the 6 photographs.
Yes, number 3 and number 6.
And you said in your direct examination that she was 75% sure it was the first person.
On June 19th, 1991, during her interview, she indicated she was 75% sure.
All right, so 25% sure it
Oh, yes,
wasn't.
I'm sorry, 75% sure.
One moment. Your Honor. All right, so she was 25% sure it wasn't her then.
Yes,
All right, so June 19th, 1991, and this was about a year after the initial interviews, that's when ASA Paul Boyle and investigator Tim Valentine conducted the second recorded interviews of both Ms. Rosales and Ms. Small.
I believe that was the first recorded. I don't think the first ones were actually recorded.
I'm sorry, the second set of interviews.
Yes.
You're correct. And these were both at the state attorney's office?
No, the first one was not at the state attorney's office, only the one in June of 1991 was.
Let me clear up that question. It was not phrased very well. Both Ms. Rosales and Ms. Small's second interviews were at the state attorney's office?
Yes.
All right. On June 20th, 91, Mr. Moyle and Mr. Valentine conducted the second recorded third interview of Ms. Rosales.
I'm not sure the date, but there was a third time where she went in, second time she went into the state attorney's office.
It's an evidence, so we could,
Okay.
from the state, we can stipulate that it was June 20th.
Yes, I'm sorry, June 20th, yes. You're talking about Ms. Rosales? Diana Rosales?
Yes,
Yes.
and Ms. Small's third interview was June 26th, 91.
Yes.
And the two witnesses at that point acknowledged discussing the case with one another.
Yes, they had rode together during the interview, or one of them drove the other one to the interview, and when they went back, they drove back to the costume shop, the Spotlight. And it was there that they saw a newspaper article that had two photographs, I believe, of Sheila Keen in it. And it was at that time that Mr. Rosales said that she was 100% positive. The woman in the picture story is the customer who bought the crime scene.
All right, so they acknowledged talking, and they acknowledged seeing newspaper articles with photographs of Ms. Keen Warren.
Yes, that was the first time she had seen that newspaper article.
So now after this, after a year, after discussing what they saw, after seeing the newspaper article,
I'm not sure if they discussed what they saw. I don't think they indicated.
you just testified the two witnesses acknowledged discussing the case with one another, you answered yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, I misspoke.
All right. After seeing a newspaper article, suddenly they expressed more confidence in their original identifications.
Yes.
One moment here. All right, now looking at Ms. Small's interview from June 19, 1991. You previously stated a few minutes ago that the picture that was taken was from a few days before. I'd say, what do you say, 3 or 4 days before?
So I wasn't sure if the picture in the photograph was actually the same picture that they took of her. They did take photographs of her when they served the search warrant, but I'm not sure if that particular picture was the one used in the lineup.
One moment, Ron. So taking a look at supplement 16, page 15. I then showed Dina Rosales a photographic lineup consisting of 6 photographs, one being a recent photograph of Sheila Keen, which was taken on May 27, 1990 during my interview with Sheila Keen.
Okay.
All right.
I just wasn't aware of that.
All right. And the same photo was used in a different position in both lineups for Ms. Rosales and Ms. Small?
Yes.
And then Ms. Small, in her interview on June 19, 1991, said, in reference to the picture, the person that I remember that came into the store was older than that.
I'm not sure.
And for the record, this is Deborah Small's recorded interview, June 19, 1991, page 8, lines 4 through 5. I have personal witness, Your Honor?
Yes, sir.
Take a look at Ms. Small's interview top of the page. Can you read that out loud?
Where would you like me to start?
Top of the page.
High school pictures, the pictures that I looked at were of women that appeared to be approximately high school age or earlier 20s. The person that I remembered that came into the store was older than that. The manner in which she wore her hair was very different than in the photo. It was difficult for me to say precisely, yes, I am sure that this was the person.
Okay.
Can we continue?
No, that's all for now. May I approach?
Yes.
And we discussed conversations between Dina Rosales and Ms. Small following their June 19th interview. And you mentioned newspaper article, but you didn't mention anything about conversations between the two?
I don't know if they had conversations or what they discussed.
I'm now reading from page 2, June 26, 1991, sworn statement of Deborah Small. After you left my office, did you at any point in time have an occasion to observe any other photographs relating to the matter which we discussed? Answer, nothing that was new to me. However, Dina and I, Dina, who was the other person that gave her statement, on the way back to Spotlight, we're discussing pictures, of course. I showed her a picture from a November article. That she apparently had not seen. Does that refresh your recollection as to whether they had a conversation?
No, but if it's in a statement.
You said on direct that Ms. Rosales said that the woman she saw needed to make sure there was enough white to cover her whole face. I'm referring to your direct examination.
She did extra white makeup to completely cover her face. Something to that effect, yes.
All right, and I'm now reading from her statement, Dina Rosales. I specifically remember her saying that she needed to make sure there was enough white to cover the whole face. Not her whole face, the whole face.
I apologize, the whole face.
She never tried on the costume when she was there?
Who?
The woman who came into the costume shop?
No,
She never tried on the wig?
no.
All right, the Chrysler Baron. And I'm not going to rehash the detectives or the eyewitnesses' testimony or statements, but I want to discuss the investigation of the car. Between May 28th and 30th, 1990, the detectives recovered several white LeBarons.
I believe there was 3. I'm not mistaken.
And they were all convertibles?
I don't remember.
All right. May 28th, 1990, PBSO processed a 1988 all white
Also,
car.
I remember reading all this stuff, Mr. Roosevelt. Is it something you're going to elicit from this witness that is new? I mean, I read all this stuff about all the different investigations, different people that came in and talked to them about the white baron, different barons. Now, something new that you're going to elicit from this witness, Mr. Roosevelt? If there is, feel free to ask.
So without getting into the specifics of each car, between May 28th and May 30th, 1990, the detectives recovered in Palm Beach County 3 all-white Chrysler LeBaron convertibles that they believed may have been the getaway car, aside from the Winn-Dixie car.
They recovered 3 Chrysler LeBarons. Again, I'm not sure if they were all convertibles or not.
All right, so according to Detective Sessa in his deposition, when the detectives recovered the Winn-Dixie LeBaron, the cars were unlocked.
I don't recall that.
All right, we'll move into evidence later on after cross-examination. So assuming it was, anyone could have had access to it?
It was unlocked, yes.
All right, one more comment from the state's response. The LeBaron was identical to the car described by witnesses leaving the scene of the murder. That's the state's response to the motion we filed today. As we discussed earlier, Gene Pratt was an eyewitness to the murder, was shown photos, and she said, no, that is not the white LeBaron.
Yes.
And we've been through Joey Ahern, same thing. Not a convertible, 86, knows the difference, knows cars. You can get through all those questions,
I
correct?
provided several statements, and I believe they varied. I know at some point he said it was a newer model.
Never said it was a convertible.
I don't recall.
On direct examination, the state asked you about Claude Poitras, his statements about the stolen LeBaron.
Yes.
All right, and you said that Mike and Sheila stole the LeBaron.
Mike got out of went to Payless, got into a white LeBaron. He and Sheila met him a mile away, and Sheila got into the car with Mike.
Your testimony on direct examination was Mike and Sheila stole the LeBaron.
Okay.
Not
I don't recall exactly saying that. I don't recall exactly saying that.
All right. I'm now showing you interview of Claude Poitras from February 14, 1991, page 31, line 17 through 19. Can you just read that, please? Highlight portion.
The one I'm referring to, I believe, was the November 1991 statement he provided.
Okay, can you just read that highlight portion?
You drove them both over there, and Mike and Sheila then stole the LeBaron. No, Mike stole the LeBaron.
All right. Add that back. Thank you. And you also, or pardon me, during the investigation, Suzanne Martin and Della Renoa were also spoke to by the detective?
Yes.
And they implicated Mike Warren, Ronald Carter, Don Carter in the theft of this white LeBaron?
Don Carter was the one who took the phone call, and Mike Warren was the one who picked up the vehicle.
All right, they also said that Mike Warren stole 3 other cars? from Payless?
I believe one of them said that, yes.
And Mike Warren had a grudge back and forth with Payless due to some advertising lawsuit.
Yes, he had to pay $30,000 or $100,000 to Payless.
All right, and Suzanne and Della, in describing,
Which Suzanne?
Suzanne Martin
Oh, okay.
and Della, in describing the theft of this white LeBaron, neither one of them mentioned at any point that Miss Keen Warren was involved in the theft of this white LeBaron.
I don't believe Suzanne Martin mentioned Sheila Keen. And Della Rayones, I'm not sure. I don't believe so.
All right, let's move on to the cold case, scientific evidence, and then we can wrap this up. So from 1990 to 2013, there were 4 sets of detectives tasked by PBSO with this further investigation.
There were several, yes, I believe.
Detective Bill Williams from 1990 to 1993.
Yes.
Wayne Robinson in 2000.
I'm not sure which year, but yes, he was the second person who became involved.
Patrick Wright from 2003 to 2004.
Yes.
And May 13, 2013, you took over the investigation?
That's when I started reviewing it, yes.
All right. And up until your involvement in this case, the state didn't have probable cause to arrest Ms. Keen Warren.
Objection, calls for legal conclusion.
What's your response?
I'm referring
You
to
answered whether the state had problem. You said whether the state had problem.
whether she believed that there was probable cause to make an arrest at that point. An officer to make it a probable cause determination.
Same objection, Mr. Scott?
Objection, still calls for legal conclusion and irrelevant for the purpose of this hearing.
You can respond to that, Your Honor?
Okay.
The state has the burden in this hearing to, it will be highest burden in our legal system. Proof evident presumption road. I'm asking if the detective, who officers can make arrest based on probable cause, thought there was a much lower burden. If she didn't think that burden existed at that time, how does the state meet this burden? So that's the relevance, and it doesn't call for a legal conclusion, because as
So right now, isn't it really what's important about the analysis right now, what you all presented to me today?
you think how is it relevant for that purpose?
So, ultimately, me deciding today, based upon what's presented in the evidence, and also in addition to what testimony comes out today, making that analysis, as to whether that's proof that evidence is something is right today.
Additional investigation. And that was because
Why is that important my analysis today?
it goes to her, it goes to the need, her need, what she believed was her need to continue to investigate the crime.
Judge, still, it would be irrelevant, first of all, for anybody's opinion, any officer's opinion, the determination for the court based on the totality of the evidence and circumstances presented to the court, both in pleadings and the evidence portion. So to ask this officer what her opinion was at any point in the investigation is frankly irrelevant.
If I can respond, Your Honor?
You done, Mr. Scott?
Yes.
Good.
The state has, throughout their response, prior to the detective's involvement in this case, has talked about the evidence being overwhelming toward her guilt, whether it be the eyewitness identifications, everything we went through. Overwhelming. Yet, she wasn't arrested prior to Detective McCan getting involved in the case. So,
And yes, Judge, briefly, that is my argument.
Move on.
all right, so up until your involvement in this case, Ms. Keen Warren was not arrested.
Correct.
The case was presented to the grand jury on August 31st, 2017.
Yes.
And you spent 4 years investigating the case before then?
Yes.
And during those 4 years, you reviewed evidence,
Yes.
interviewed witnesses,
Yes.
tracked down new leads, or attempted to?
Yes.
And in doing all this, you uncover any new evidence aside from microscopic hair and DNA analysis performed by the FBI?
Yes, that was the additional evidence.
I'm just, I'm quoting from your deposition before we discuss the science. Other than getting information from the FBI, was there any other new evidence uncovered during your investigation suggesting that Sheila Keen Warren committed the murder? You responded there would be additional hair analysis done. This would be the majority of the additional information. We asked would that be all of the new information. You said, I can't remember any additional witnesses that were recovered or discovered. We asked, so it sounds like once the case was picked up, the only additional new information that leads to Sheila Keen's arrest comes from the FBI reports and their analysis. Would that be correct? And you confirmed it comes from things that were tested from our agency and then processed, submitted, and tested by the FBI. That's all correct from your deposition?
Again, Judge, objection. That's neither impeachment nor refreshment, and that's exactly what the witness just testified to.
It's hearsay. It's permissible.
You submitted, also, this has been submitted. That's not, didn't I read about that in your submission that, oh, that's the thing, oh, that's not allowed to do, right?
That's fine. I can move on from that question. This course asked you, and this is page 85 of your deposition, did you follow up with any of those suspects, people of interest? You responded, I did not. Ms. Morse asked you, any particular reason why? And ultimately you said the evidence that I had, I went with the evidence which was against Sheila Keen.
I'm assuming I don't have it in front of me, but I imagine that's what you're reading from.
So when you picked up the case, you focused your investigation on Sheila Keen Warren.
I read all of the case file, and that's where who I believed committed the crime. And I went with the evidence until I could prove or disprove that she committed the crime.
All right, so my question again is you focused your investigation on Sheila Keen Warren.
Yes,
or
but
no?
I did take into account the initial investigation from the detectives and what they did with the suspects,
I'm asking you.
or who you claim were suspects.
My question, not your question. You focused your investigation on Sheila Keen Warren, yes or no?
Judge has to answer.
Just a,
All right, now the scientific evidence. Sergeant Michael Free and Detective Jay Mullins processed the inside of the vehicle,
Yes.
and Sergeant Free handled the forensics from the house.
There were several people there with, I'm not sure who all was present, anybody else from the crime scene, but I know I think Detective Williams, Detective Kelly, Sergeant Seth, I think they were there as well.
Okay, correct. But I'm just saying from CSI, Sergeant Free.
He was there, yes.
And in terms of items from the house, he assisted with collecting flowers.
I don't know exactly what he collected does not.
The CSI team.
Oh, yes,
All right, balloons,
at the crime scene, yes.
ribbons,
Ribbon was attached to the balloon.
and several other items, miscellaneous items from the house.
At the residence, yes.
All right, from the car, dry cleans,
Yes,
hair,
yes.
gum wrappers,
I don't know if it's a wrapper or a gum that was on the seat.
fiber, and several other items, miscellaneous items.
Hairs and fibers. Yes.
And all items were tested for fingerprints.
I can't say exactly, but I believe that the items were tested. I can't say exactly all of them. That was so typical for them to do.
Some items were sent to different labs for fingerprints.
During the initial investigation, they were all done by our lab, I believe.
But at one point in the first couple of years of Detective Williams, the balloons were sent to the west coast of Florida.
I don't know if it was under Detective Williams or if it was when another detective became involved. I'm not sure when exactly it was, but yes, I think Pinellas County.
And Miss Keen Warren's fingerprints were not found in the balloons.
No.
the lab tested the money from Publix for fingerprints?
Yes, they collected all of the $100 bills that they had that day.
And her fingerprints were not found in the money?
I'm not sure if any fingerprints were found.
Well, as far as you know, Ms. Keen Warren's fingerprints were found nowhere in this case.
Yes.
Hold on. If I remember correctly, the information was that there were no fingerprints found on any of the money in Publix. That was what I recall reading, right? Mr. Rosenthal, he told me something different. I remember reading that they pulled the bills and there were no prints on those bills.
That wasn't in one of my submissions, but it meant to say one of their exhibits.
Did you review those? They're all of evidence, right?
Yes.
I thought I read them.
Yes, I believe there were no prints found on bills.
Your question to her was what?
Whether they found any fingerprints on the money that was taken from Publix.
I remember reading that, but you remember, was there any prints found on the money?
No.
And no prints in the house of the car.
No.
Now, this, to their credit, Mullins and Free were incredibly thorough with their processing of the crime scene.
I wasn't there. I would say that they were thorough.
Also with the car,
Yes.
they photographed all the items.
I'm not sure.
In your case file, you have photographs
I
of,
have tons of photographs. I'm not sure of the items photographed.
they bagged all the evidence.
I believe so. I'm sorry, I wasn't there. They did a thorough investigation.
They filled out the property receipts.
I'm assuming so, yes.
All right, over the years, this evidence was reviewed by each set of detectives.
I'm not sure. I don't know if Detective Robinson viewed it or how much of the evidence Detective Wright viewed.
All right, but in 2013, when you took over the investigation, you had Celinda Sowers from PBSO Crime Lab review the evidence with you.
Certain pieces of evidence.
All right, and one of the items you reviewed was a ribbon from a balloon.
I'm not sure if I viewed that with her or if that's something that is submitted and she viewed and tested.
All right, and that was a ribbon from the balloon from the crime scene.
Yes, one of the ribbons.
And on this balloon, Ms. Sowers discovered a 6 to 8 inch fiber.
Yes.
A 6 to 8 inch fiber that for 23 years, not a single person saw evidence. Is that right?
Yes.
A 6 to 8 inch fiber that Sergeant Free missed when collecting, photographing, and bagging evidence.
It was not collected, or it was not identified as being on the balloon by anyone other than Celinda Sowers.
A 6 to 8 inch ribbon that Detective Williams missed.
I don't think he would actually have viewed it. I mean, he might have seen it at the crime scene, but to view it to process it for evidence, he would not be doing that. He would not do that.
All right, so a 6 to 8 inch fiber that the PBSO Crime Lab missed in 1990 when they examined the ribbon.
I'm not sure if it was examined in 1990.
Come on, Your Honor. Now reading from your deposition on June 26, 2019, page 30, lines 7 through 9. Was the balloon and balloon ribbon examined during the original investigation? Yes. So,
You would have to look at the crime scene reports. I don't have an independent recollection of that. I'm sitting here today. I don't know if it was processed by our crime lab.
I'm reading from your deposition right now.
I understand that.
All right, so on that date, you stated that the balloon and balloon ribbon examined during the original were examined during the original investigation.
I I might have misspoke. If it was examined, it would be indicated in the DNA lab in their notes or in the reports. And if anyone else, it should be indicated in the reports.
You're referring to the balloon ribbon or?
The balloon ribbon. The balloons were processed, but you're specifically referring to the ribbon. I don't know if in that statement if it says balloons and ribbon, because the balloons were processed. The ribbon specifically, I'm not sure.
All right, and the question before that, the one hair that was recovered from the ribbon that was tied to the balloon, similar questions. Was the balloon and the balloon ribbon examined during the original investigation? Yes. So the context of this is referring to this fiber on this balloon ribbon.
Okay, maybe that's not how I took it. I'm sitting here today telling you that the balloons were processed, yes. I don't know if they specifically referred to the ribbon, but I know when Ms. Sowards did her processing, she found what she appeared to be a hair/fiber.
And the balloon and blue ribbon were also sent over to the FBI in 1990?
I'm not sure if in 1990, I'm not sure if the ribbon was sent. The balloons, I don't know, they weren't sent to the FBI, I don't believe. I have to look at the initial FBI report.
All right, so for 23 years, the 6 to 8 inch fiber, the biggest fiber in this case, goes unnoticed by everybody who investigated this case.
Objection, I say.
Just a second. Mr. Roosevelt, keep in mind, Jeff, this is a bond hearing that's going on most of the day, right? You're asking the same question over and over again. Please consider the court time, sir, right?
Yes, Your Honor, I apologize.
You realize I'm not a jury here, right? Okay? I understand you may make that argument down the road, too. Please proceed.
And based on these reports here, compare the hair fibers in the car with the wig that PBS overlapped?
Yes.
Not the actual clown wig?
No, that was never recovered.
And throughout the pleadings, the state says analyzed orange-yellow fibers. And looking at page 3 of the FBI trace evidence report, the FBI analyzed yellow wig-type fibers, correct?
In this one, yes, but I believe in the first report in 1990, when they initially looked at it, they might refer to it.
So for purposes of the current FBI work, it says yellow fibers.
The most recent one, yes.
And the 2 employees in Spotlight say orange wig.
Yes.
And neither PBSO or the FBI did any chemical compositions of the fibers, chemical testing.
I don't believe so. It would be contained within the reports if they did.
So even if we had the actual wig, a fiber association is still not means of positive identification, right?
Correct. It's just similar to what they refer to, similar or consistent with, I believe.
Yeah, even if we had the actual wig, the number of possible sources for a specific fiber is unknown.
I believe so. I'm not a scientist.
All right, page 4 of the trace evidence report.
A fiber association is not a means of positive identification, and the number of possible sources for a specific fiber is unknown.
When I talked about chemical composition, I was specifically referring to thin layer chromatography. That was never done.
I don't believe so.
And that's the test that's necessary to figure out the chemical composition.
I'm not sure.
All right, so regarding the microscopic hair analysis, state asked, the alleged, and they're putting in, they asked you, on the microscopic hair analysis on several strands of human hair located in the levarin concluded the hair was microscopically consistent with the hair of the defendant. And if you look at FBI Trace Evidence Report, page 2, and I believe I highlighted that for you.
Okay. And which one are you referring to? 39-2?
Well, let's say, well, the portion that says the FBI can pull, give me 1 second, let me pull that up. Yes, so they concluded that 39-2 and which is Q12 and Q15, which is 39-3, were consistent with Ms. Keen Warren's hair, right?
That broken down more, I'm sorry.
Sure. If you look at results of examinations on page 2, second paragraph. 2 Caucasian head hairs recovered from Q12 and 1 head hair recovered from Q15.
Sorry, I thought you were talking about the
Oh, no, I apologize. Are microscopically consistent with the head hair sample from Sheila Keen, K4. The hair from Q15 has been labeled item 39-3, and the root portion of that hair has been labeled 39-3-3-1 for possible DNA analysis.
correct, that's what it said.
All right, so Q12 39-2 and Q15 39-3. And the FBI also stated in the trace evidence report that the comparison of the microscopic characteristics in hairs does not constitute a basis for personal identification.
Yes.
They stated the inclusion of an individual as a possible source of the hair by the comparison of the microscopic characteristics must be evaluated in conjunction with the conclusion of mitochondrial DNA analysis.
Yes, that's what it says.
And the reason being there are extreme limitations to microscopic hair analysis.
I'm not sure the limitations, it just says that it can't be.
All right, let's talk about Q15, which the FBI labeled as item 39-3 for the shaft and 39-3-1 for the root. Can you flip to page 3 of the DNA report?
Yes.
All right. 39-3-1. A mixture of male and female DNA was obtained from 39-3-1. Warren and Keen are excluded as potential contributors of the DNA obtained from item 39-3-1.
Yes.
So let's break that down. The state claims they found several strands of human hair that are microscopically consistent with Ms. Keen Warren. Several. The FBI actually found 2, not several, correct?
It depends on what your definition of several is.
All right, put 2. And one of the 2 that the FBI found to be microscopically consistent was actually excluded as belonging to Ms. Keen Warren based on the FBI's DNA analysis.
If I could just take a minute and refer back to the trace evidence report.
Sure, page 2, paragraph 2 in the results of examination. Q15 is 39-3 and 39-3-1. And if you look at the DNA report, page 3, 39-3-1.
I'm sorry, I'm just a little uncomfortable when you said just 2 because further in the report it says that she couldn't be, no conclusion could be made on some of the other ones, whether or not Sheila Keen could be included as a possible source.
That's what I'm referring to, 39-3-1, that one specific one that they found to be microscopically consistent.
Okay.
Warren and Keen are excluded as potential contributors of the DNA obtained from 39-3-1.
Yes.
Okay. So now, this several the state's referring to was actually one.
There was there were hair sent. 2 of them were done mitochondrial, and I believe 2 were the roots.
Sure, so 2 were microscopically consistent. 1 of them was tested. Right, the one of them we just referred to was tested. Miss Keen Warren was excluded from that. So now of the 2 that were microscopically consistent, only 1 can belong to Miss Keen Warren.
Okay.
So the FBI or any scientist can say that a hair is microscopically consistent and it can end up not belonging to that person, as is the case here, right?
That could happen, yes.
Okay. Now the DNA. The FBI identified 2 items that could link Miss Keen Warren to the Winn-Dixie LeBaron, correct?
I'm sorry, I'm still confused with the hair, because I believe 39-2, a hair from the vacuum sweepings of the right rear LeBaron, a partial mitochondrial DNA sequence was obtained. She could not be excluded as being the source of that hair.
Or not?
You're saying that there was only 1 hair.
No, what I'm saying is, let me clear that up for you. What I'm saying is, the FBI in the trace evidence report said there were 2 items that were microscopically consistent with Sheila Keen Warren. 2 hairs. I'm referring to just one of them now, 39-3 and 39-3-1, the root and the shaft of the hair,
Okay.
all right, which should have the same DNA. It's a full hair out, root, shaft, same person. They tested the DNA on 39-3-1, one of the hairs that was microscopically consistent, and they determined that Miss Keen Warren was excluded as the source of that hair, which means that for one of the 2 hairs that was microscopically consistent with Miss Keen Warren did not belong to Miss Keen Warren.
Okay.
Does that clarify that?
Yes.
All right. Now we'll just deal with the DNA, put the microscopic stuff aside for a second. So the FBI identified 2 items, 3, but 2 for the time being, that could link Miss Keen Warren to the Winn-Dixie LeBaron, right? And that was a hair from the floor mat and a hair from vacuum sweepings from the right rear of the vehicle. And that's 39-1/39-1-1 and 39-2.
Yes.
All right, 39-1 was the root of the hair from the floor mat. Excuse me. 39-1 was the shaft of the hair from the floor mat. 39-1-1 was the root of the hair, of the same hair.
Yes.
So I pulled out a hair from my head, which I'm not going to do use. Got a terrible hairline, but it would be the same hair being tested.
I believe so.
All right. And they labeled the shaft of the hair from the vacuum sweepings 39-2.
The root was,
39-1-1.
yes, 39 was the root, and yes.
So one hair, 39-1 and 39-1-1 constitutes one hair, and 39-2 constitutes the other hair.
Correct.
All right, and I'm going to read you last comment from the state and ask you about this. DNA analysis on the skin portion of the hair root concluded that the defendant is the source of the skin on the hair located in the Chrysler LeBaron. Even more damning, though, are the results of the DNA testing on the root portion of one of these hairs, of which the defendant is the source. So, the state's referring to 39-1-1, the root. Is that right?
If that's what you said, yes.
And according to the FBI report, the both male DNA and female DNA is present on 3911. That's page 2, first line, male DNA is present in item 3911. Interpretation of item 3991 was performed, and they go on to say they came to the source of one of the contributors. So you have a male contributor and a female contributor. We on the same page so far?
Yes.
All right, you talked about in your direct examination percentages of who it was more likely to belong to this group, but this paragraph right here doesn't indicate who the major contributor and the minor contributor of the DNA is.
No.
All right. And the FBI's raw data indicates that a male is the major contributor of the DNA for this hair group.
I don't know.
All right. You testified on direct that you spoke with the DNA analyst.
It is.
She didn't mention that to you. That 80% of the hair, of the DNA on that hair group belongs to the man, not
80% of that, and she did not indicate that.
And you, as a cold case detective, deal with a considerable amount of DNA.
I do.
I know you're not a specialist. I would expect that, so I'm basing, this on the report. So, a hair, if I pull out a hair, if properly cleaned by a DNA lab, it should be a single source, one source of DNA. There's one hair, one person. Is that right?
Not necessarily. If somebody, I don't know their cleaning process, so I don't know. If somebody touched it as well, I don't know. The root portion, I would imagine, we typically, but I don't know. I'm not a scientist. I cannot answer that.
Sure. For the purpose of cleaning a hair for DNA analysis is to make sure there's no contaminants. So they go through a whole process, they clean it, they go through this whole thing, and it's a hair belongs to one person, not two. So, like you said with the root, it should be a single source, one person, not multiple people.
Objection, beyond the scope of this witness's knowledge.
But he questioned her thoroughly about the statistics, who it belonged to, and she did say that there was.
Some little more, a few little elastic here, Mr. Rosenfeld, but again, about an hour ago, we're setting up
DNA,
an hour later, okay? So, please wrap it up, sir. Okay, so I'll just let you go a little bit in this area.
Thank you very much, Your Honor. So like you said, the root, you assume, at the very least, should belong to one person.
I'm not a scientist. I can't say that. I don't know.
But in your experience as a cold case detective, when you're dealing with hair, for example, when there's multiple people's DNA on it, that generally indicates that the sample was contaminated.
Objection.
No, just
Hold on, grounds?
Again, beyond the scope of this witness's knowledge.
Just stand.
All right, so you said earlier that 3911 has male and female DNA on it.
Yes.
So if the root of the hair belongs to a man, then what flows from that is the shaft of the hair. The rest of the hair could also belong to a man.
Objection, beyond the scope, speculation, and ask and answer.
Just stand.
All right, if I reply to that objection, if you testify there was a 1 in like a billion probability that hair belonged to Ms. Keen Warren, which is absolutely without question, indisputably wrong. And I'm not saying that as based on experts, I'm saying that based on everything here. That's not true. And I just ask for a little latitude to question her on that bold statement, on the one piece of evidence that really connects our client to the car. So if she can make a statement that is redundant, that powerful against Ms. Keen Warren, that isn't scientific or factually correct, I just want to question her a little bit on it. Okay. Can you flip to page 2 of the DNA report? I'm sorry, page 2 of the trace evidence report. I'm going to apologize again, page 1 of the trace evidence report. All right, so 39.1 and 39.11 both come from Q5. And again, that's the hair shaft and the hair follicle we just referred to.
The root portion and hair, yeah.
Now look at page 2 of the trace evidence report. Now I'm going to read you third paragraph from the bottom. All right? Our Caucasian head hair recovered from Q5 being 39.1, 39.11, one with male, female DNA, exhibits both similarities and differences to the head hair sample from Sheila Keen. Accordingly, based on the K4 head hair sample, no conclusion as to whether or not Sheila Keen can be included as a possible source of the hair can be reached. And that's the hair with the male and the female DNA, correct? Q5, 39.1, 39.11.
39.11, yes, yes.
All right.
39.1, and I'll think it indicates that there was in there.
So, first we have the root showing male and female DNA, and now the microscopic hair analysis shows similarities and differences to Ms. Keen Warren.
Are you specifically referring to 39.11 or 39.1?
39.1 is the shaft from the same hair.
I don't see where it indicates there was a male there.
39.11.
39.11, yes, but not 39.1.
I'm referring to the root portion of the same hair from the same person.
You're just referring to 39.11.
Correct.
Okay, I just
And
wanted to-
Q5 refers to, as we stated earlier, 39.1 and 39.11. So 39.11 has male DNA, 39.1 the shaft shows similarities and differences to Ms. Keen Warren.
In the trace, yes.
All right. So now 39.2, and that's the second hair, the other hair. That's the hair from the vacuum sweeping from the right rear of the stolen vehicle. On page 2 of the FBI report,
Which one?
39.2,
Which report?
I'm sorry, the FBI DNA report.
Okay.
The FBI obtained a partial mitochondrial DNA sequence from a hair recovered from the right rear of the vehicle.
Right.
And it's only a partial sequence because this DNA is highly degraded.
I don't know if it's highly degraded or why they only got a partial, but yes, they got a partial.
All right, and the FBI analyst did conclude that Ms. Keen Warren cannot be excluded as being the source of this item.
Yes.
All right, and the FBI also found that 4%, looking here, of U.S. Caucasians have the same mitochondrial DNA sequence. Look at the chart, I highlighted for U.S. Caucasian, 4%.
That's where I was confused with the upper bound frequency estimate. So
Sure.
I'm not sure if that's what that means. She explained that the upper bound frequency is most common, that we would expect to see that in the population group.
4%. So assuming 4% is what I'm telling you it is, 1 out of every 25 U.S. Caucasians have the same DNA sequence as Ms. Keen Warren.
Okay, that's what you're saying, yes.
So looking at the number of people in this room, about one other person in this room should have the same mitochondrial sequence.
I think you're,
Objection,
is that the
speculation,
one?
irrelevant, improper question.
Staying, Mr. Rosenfeld, okay, you've got way past 3 hours and a lot of each time, okay, for this case today, okay? Right now, it's 10 or 4. You have to 4 o'clock to wrap this up.
Oh, done before, done before.
Great.
So let's assume for the next question that, you know, you had incredible DNA evidence, 1 in 6 billion, for example, you know, some of the numbers you commonly come across in your cases. And let's assume that these hairs actually belong to Ms. Keen Warren for the next few questions. Mike Warren allegedly stole the Winn-Dixie LeBaron 45 days before the murder.
Yes.
So, for all we know, Ms. Keen Warren could have been in the car one time 44 days before the shooting.
Objection, speculation.
Overruled.
Yes.
She could have given Mike Warren a hug and had one of the long brown hairs stick to his shirt and got in the car.
Yes.
No.
I don't know how her hair got into the car, if that's what you're asking.
And in the DNA report, you also found dog hair in the car, right?
I think the FBI indicated they did not find any.
They also found hair belonging to other people,
Yes,
and that doesn't mean they were there for the shooting.
correct.
It could have been.
Oh, and the animal hair consistent with the dog hair was recovered, yes.
So as you said, Ms. Keen Warren's hair could have been in the car without her ever getting in the car.
Could be, yes.
And to wrap up, you found no white makeup in the car,
No,
no fingerprints in the car,
no,
no blood in the car.
no,
You never recovered the firearm,
no,
never recovered the clown costume,
no,
no positive identification of Sheila Keen Warren at the scene of the shooting,
no,
and you have no DNA belonging to Sheila Keen Warren at the scene of the shooting.
no.
Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you, sir. You're up.
Just briefly, Judge. This, for Detective McCan, I just want to call your attention to those line of questions from defense counsel regarding where the costume or where the wig and other makeup products were purchased. You recall that line of questioning?
I do.
Take a look at that. Sure. Fine.
We object this to the discovery violation, Judge. States alleging they showed us this document in.
Before we get to that, the documents that the witness has.
Oh, may I approach and bring them?
Yes, yes, take care of that. I know what's going on.
Your Honor, the state has in possession of a receipt that I know was turned over probably 4 years ago at this point. And I proffered as a receipt bearing the name of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. It is for a number of items, including an orange wig, clown makeup, red nose, a costume catalog, and a white sales receipt. And it's the state's position that these items are obtained from the Spotlight costumers. There is a makeup kit, an orange wig, a sales receipt, all in the possession of the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office. It was purchased, and photographs of the clown makeup kit and the orange wig and the sales or the costume catalog appear on the LEMS report. This receipt merely shows that these items were in fact purchased. The items that were taken for analysis were in fact purchased from the Spotlight costumers. Further, I believe that Detective Sergeant Lou Sessa testified as such that he actually obtained the makeup and wig items for comparison in his deposition that he had probably a month ago.
This goes to the issue of them getting the weight from Spotlight Caige or somewhere else.
Correct.
Okay. You're saying to me that stuff was turned over to the defense 4 years ago?
This was part of Detective McCann's original investigation packet, and it's all in the same location on my drive. I know absolutely that this receipt was turned over. It looks similar to the other receipt because it's the same Spotlight Caige, but this receipt was turned over.
Now, we object to the discovery violation. We, both myself, Ms. Morse, employees of Mr. Lubin as paralegal, we all looked through every piece of discovery from the state and the entire case file provided to us from Detective McCan. And that was never turned over to us. And as evidence of that, McCan testified she didn't even know if there was a receipt. We're seeing this for the first time today. We have asked for pictures of these items, specifically because we don't have a receipt. And I'm sure if you asked Mr. Scott about that, he would agree. He also stated in the conversation he had with me 2 days ago, he didn't know if a costume existed at the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office Evidence Department. So for him to now say there's this receipt of it, he didn't know if they had one, excuse me, and that he knew about it and then he turned it over to us, is simply not true. And it's what's a few days ago.
It's good as a jury not sitting there and dealing with it right now, okay? So the relates to this issue really is, her testimony, if I remember correctly, was that she didn't recall whether or not the officers got it from the Spotlight Caige or somewhere else. So, did you say that? She didn't remember it. So,
Actually, I believe her testimony was she believed that she read in a report that it was, or believed Lou Sessa told her that, but she couldn't be certain.
okay. So, so there's really no evidence one way or the other at this point, unless I would have considered what you want me to do.
Right. I mean, I would like to show this to Detective McCann for the purpose of refreshing her recollection. And again, it does not say that a costume was purchased. It says that a costume catalog and no charge was given. So I don't believe a costume was ever purchased, maybe a photograph of a costume. But it was clearly turned over to the Palm Beach County Sheriff's Office by the Spotlight Caige.
She did not say she didn't recall it.
I get it. This is all stuff, by the way, I don't know how much we covered in our last conversation before we came today, but this shouldn't have been a matter of dispute. Everyone should know what everyone else has got, right? Okay, and this shouldn't happen. So I'm glad this happened now rather than a few months down the road when we're trying a case, okay? But for the amount of significance I put on this, I'm going to grant the, at this point in time, I'm going to sustain the objection, okay? And next question.
Okay.
Thank you, Your Honor.
And down the road, tomorrow, maybe give them whatever you got there. Make sure they have it, okay?
Yes, sir. And then approaching the witness with the original FBI report. Madam Clerk, states number 28. Is that what I'm up to? 26. State with mark this is state 26.
Mr. Scott, I know she's your witness, but in the future, if you can already ask me to approve that.
I'm sorry,
That's okay.
Report to have.
That's all right.
Madam Clerk, witness.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Detective McCann, have you seen this report before?
Yes,
And was this provided to both myself and Defense Discovery?
yes.
What is this report?
It's the original FBI report from back in 1990.
Okay. And in that report, did they perform any DNA analysis or only microscopic hair analysis?
Microscopic analysis.
And in this report, as you stated previously, how were the fibers gathered from the LeBaron referred to as far as color-wise?
Yellowish orange.
Yellowish orange monochrome? So when defense questioned you about whether the hairs were described as yellow, you said you believe that they were described as yellow as orange in the previous report. Is that the report you're referring to?
Yes.
Okay. I have no further questions, Judge.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Scott. It's 4 o'clock, and then you guys got another witness. You said in the last 10 minutes, right?
Yeah.
All right. So why don't we take a break? Come back at 4:10.
Court's in recess.
Oh, yes. Any reason Detective McCan stay here anymore? All right,
David agreed to release.
all right. Here you go.
Detective McCann, do you have supplement 16 and 88?
Yes.
We'll give her something next tomorrow, right?
Thank you.